on it as well. So. Okay, moving on to item D, Insurance Services Office, ISO rating for the City of Port St. Lucie. We have Mr. Dramus coming up to talk to us about a very important topic. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, city manager, staff, and residents of the City of Port St. Lucie. Before I go into the presentation, I'd like to thank Teresa Lamar Sarno and Jessica Hines in the clerk's office for teaching me how to use Legistar. It's actually our first Legistar item. Took about 17 emails and 4 tries, but we finally got it. We're appreciative for that. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the annual ISO report for the City of Port St. Lucie. My name is Joel Dramus. I'm building director for the city, closing in on 37 years of employment with the city. I just have to throw that in every time. Because before we get into insurance reform, I think there's a little bit of a history lesson of why the property insurance situation is what it is. And to do that, we have to go back to August 24 of 1992, was the day that Hurricane Andrew arrived in Miami-Dade County. For those of us that were here and watching the storm, you know that that storm was heading towards St. Lucie County. It was supposed to come to St. Lucie County, and it never made what they call that proverbial bobble to go north, and it stayed due west. The results of that storm were catastrophic. 63,500 homes were destroyed. Just to give you a comparison, we have 83,000 homes in the city of Port St. Lucie. 124,000 homes were damaged. There was $27.3 billion in damage to property. Equivalent today is $61 billion. And 65 people died. So as a result of this catastrophe, the entire building code industry that I deal with and the property insurance industry changed forever. Following the FEMA study, there's a FEMA study that's conducted after every storm. Following the FEMA study and 2 grand juries that were convened in the 11th Judicial Court, 11th Judicial Circuit, changes were made. And these reports all identified 3 major areas of problems in Miami-Dade. One was the lack of a state building code. We actually had 5 building codes, the last called the Epcot Code, which some people nicknamed the Mickey Mouse Code. We had no state licensing for building officials, building inspectors, and plan reviewers, and no continuing education requirements for building code professionals. As a result of these reports, the insurance companies, as some of you may recall, threatened to cancel their insurance policies for property in the state of Florida, and they also threatened not to write any more policies. Governor Childs returned that comment by stating, if you didn't write property insurance, you didn't write any insurance policies in the state of Florida at all. So as a result, after several years of coming together in meetings with the legislature, we have a Florida building code, which is codified in Florida Statute 553. We have state licensing for building code professionals in Florida Statute 468, Part 12. We have continuing education mandates for building code professionals, and we have citizens insurance formed by the legislature to provide a way that folks, property owners, can get insurance, dubbed as the insurance company of last resort. So there are several factors that influence the cost of property insurance. One is the location, age, and type of building, the use of the building, whether it's residential or commercial, the proximity to fire protection services, the choice of deductibles, the scope and the amount of coverage, the value of the structure. We heard that talked about by Carolyn early today. The roof cover, the claims history, the credit score, and the fact whether or not you have a swimming pool or other structures on your property, and something called ISO, which is the Insurance Services Office. The Insurance Services Office was formed in 1971 as an advisory and rating organization for the property and casualty insurance industry to provide statistical and actuarial services, develop insurance programs, and assist the insurance companies in meeting state regulatory requirements. So there was like a sort of a watchdog organization to measure and calculate the effects of storms and the effectiveness of the implementation of codes to determine property insurance rates. BSEGS, or the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule, is a program administered by ISO that evaluates building departments in jurisdictions across the country. They do about, every 3 years, about 8,000 building departments. And they want to know, they'll evaluate our building code adoption, the enforcement of our building codes, and they rate us on a scale of 1 to 10. The BSEGS, or Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule, helps communities reduce the damage caused by natural disasters, lower insurance costs, and promote the construction of safer buildings. So what does this look like? Well, they do this comprehensive evaluation. First, they send me a 38-page book, and I have to submit all information about my staff and about the city. And they rate us basically on 27 areas of focus for residential and 27 areas of focus for commercial. The values are calculated and based in terms of the BSEG schedule to determine a score of between 1 and 100. As you can guess, 100 is the best and 1 is the worst. Each community score is then converted to a 1 to 10 classification. So here's what the ISO report, or the BSEGS folks look at. They want to know the number of daily plan reviews for each of my plan reviewers. They want to know the number of daily inspections per inspector, the classification, licenses, and experience of every employee in the department, of which we have 89. They look at code adoption practices, our appeals process, our adopted codes, quality control measures, experience and education of the building official, the budget, continuing education mandates. I emboldened that for a purpose, because I'm going to come back to that. Public outreach, training and education, mentoring hours, technical code training, payment for exams and certification fees, pay rates and incentives, and there's more. Payment for continuing education, zoning, land use, contractor certifications, our involvement in the code development process, our administrative policies, quality assurance, product approval process, use of checklists, record-keeping practices, employee performance evaluations. We do our own evaluation as well as the city-required evaluation, damage assessment practices, our emergency management plan, and our certificate of occupancy requirements. This takes about 400 or 500 hours of staff time to compile this, because they actually analyze every employee, their experience, what they do, their daily workload, et cetera. So as I told you before, the points scored are in a score of 1 to 100, and it's converted to a BSEGS classification of 1 to 10. Here you can see in this chart, the state average. Remember we said a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the absolute best, 10 being terrible. The state average was a 3 for commercial and a 4 for residential. The city of Port St. Lucie outscored most all building departments in the state of Florida with a 2 for commercial and a 3 for residential. To take it one step further, ISO also does a comparison of the city of Port St. Lucie to the nation. And you can see in our score of a 2 and a 3, very few building departments in the entire United States received the ranking that we received from ISO. In conclusion, the city of Port St. Lucie code enforcement practices scored lower than the state average, and lower is good in this case, for both residential and commercial, and scored in the lower 10% when compared to building departments countrywide. Insurers use the assigned grading to determine property insurance values and grant premium credits for buildings constructed under strictly enforced codes. Effective building code enforcement leads to safer buildings, less damage from catastrophes, and lower insured losses. Over the years, I've received, as you can imagine, doing this like 12 times, I received calls from insurance companies asking me for copies of the ISO report to determine our BSEGS rating. We get numerous calls from policyholders telling us that their insurance premiums have been reduced between $300 and $400. My action plan following this meeting is to send our BSEG score to every insurance company in the United States. There's only about 600, but why not brag, right? If you don't toot your own horn, someone will use it as a spittoon. And my new role as director is to review changes in Florida law. I sit on several legislative committees, and I'm in direct communication with Florida home builders, state officials, and Florida legislators. I attend their meetings, organize support for the approval and denial of proposed legislation. Unfortunately, a bill got by us last year, Senate Bill 382, which eliminated the requirement of continuing education for building code professionals. I've already begun my work in meeting with legislators, also the Florida Insurance Advocate, and I will be campaigning throughout the state. I will be promoting throughout the state to bring this bill back. I've already drafted the bill myself, and I'm looking for a sponsor. I hope next Tuesday I will have a sponsor, and we'll be looking to put that bill forward to continue to be a high-performing government organization like we are. By the way, just the drop in the requirement for continuing education does not impact us in the city of Port St. Lucie. My staff will still be mandated to complete the continuing education because it's valuable to me and it's valuable to the residents of Port St. Lucie. So with that, I'll be open to questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, make a comment.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and I'm very glad that you're going to bring that back, especially because of the ISO rating. Obviously, the city doesn't have the ability to, get involved in the insurance piece of where the insurance is in the market. We're all suffering with the cost of insurance, but we definitely can put the programs together that will help the overall community in its insurance rating. And on the federal side, specifically the National Flood Insurance, and advocating to make sure that the floodplain maps are actually accurately represented and that program is continued throughout time is important as well. And so we can do things as a municipality to help continue to bring insurance rates down. And I'm so glad that you're doing this. And then as far as the advocacy, and I appreciate your continued advocacy, I would also encourage, as always, to reach out to the Florida League of Cities if you were able to obtain a sponsor to see if it's something that the league could support. And because it is going to help other municipalities as well. If that continuing education requirement is part of it, it will help all cities maintain that status, which in turn will hopefully help keep everyone's rates lower in Florida. So thank you again for the presentation.
You're welcome. I did reach out to the league. They have not responded yet. But I will tell you the bit of good news that was shared by Representative Overdorf last week at a meeting I attended in the Tradition Town Hall for WPTV. There are now like 11 more insurance companies that have entered the property insurance market in the state of Florida.
That's fantastic.
And anytime you increase the numbers, you increase competition, the end result is lower rates. It was also shared with me with the Florida Insurance Advocate from the Florida Office of Insurance Reform that there is a website in the state that you can put property in, your property details in, and you could get quotes from all the insurance companies in the state of Florida. I did it on a whim, and I found that I could cut my property insurance by like $2,400 by just shopping one of those companies that are on the list. Also important to note that I think 7 insurance companies have applied for a rate hike of less than 2% in the upcoming year, and several are applying to the state for approval and reduction for property insurance rates. So it's a little bit of good news, and I think the news is going to continue to get better.
So, Madam Mayor, I don't know if we can, but I would like legal and the city manager to just check out the website you're speaking of specifically, to see if that's something we could place on our website for, to share with the citizens and the residents, because I know that's something that they're highly, myself, I mean, unfortunately, my insurance, for no reason, I haven't even had a claim in all the years I've lived in my house. I'm having to look for new insurance in October because that company decided to pull out in the state of Florida. So I think that'd be a great resource for all of our citizens. Huh?
You have 9 new ones you can pick from.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that news.
Yeah, I think that'd be great if we could check it out and share it. That happened to me last year. And, it's difficult and it's very time consuming to shop insurance companies and having to work with the broker, but this may be an option for our residents would be much more helpful. But I'm really glad that you came up and explained all this, Joel, because this is what we can do to help with the rates, since we can't control the market and we don't have that oversight. And it's really important for all of our residents to know just how much goes into this reporting and how long it takes in order to make sure that we're giving all this accurate and important information out. The lower, like you mentioned, the lower the rating, the better our rates. So if we didn't have all this information and we weren't so consistent with it, the rates that are offered out in the marketplace would be higher as a result. I also want to share that not only does the city get rated, but our county fire district gets rated as well. And we go through that process on a regular basis. And our fire district has a rating of 2. And we've come a long way over the last few years with regard to that, to finally get to that 2 rating. Of course, we're always striving for the number 1 rating. We have a little bit more work to do. And that it really involves, because of water supply in certain areas of the county, in the rural areas, that is a little bit harder to address. But thank you again for that, and I really appreciate you sharing all this with us and all of our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.